That freeze on you too, or is that just me?
Yeah, it did that. Yeah.
I wonder if it's funny now, like records all of us separately. I wonder if when it plays that, it records it separately too. That'd be interesting.
Probably. I don't know.
I'd hope so. We'll find out later.
This is SeerNova Podcast, Season 2, Episode 13, lucky number 13. And we have Stephen Honeycutt with us.
Hello. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So who are you and what do you do?
What are you?
No one reads. They're not going to be able to read it. That it says Steve Honeycutt, head reptilian at Reptilian Media. No, my name is Steve, and I, among other things, I'm a writer. I write a comic book called Escape to Earth. We've got 3 issues out so far, 2 more along the way, which will complete the story. And before that, I actually wrote an audio drama. It's about, I don't know, maybe 5 years old at this point, called Ray Can't Sleep. It doesn't really have anything to do with comics. It was actually sort of my way of practicing writing serialized entertainment before, I went and started asking for people's money in order to make comics. And yeah, now we actually do a panel at conventions, if they allow us, for, writers or whoever wants to make an audio drama for as cheap as possible, because that's how I made mine, as cheap as possible.
So I even went out of my way to get a flip phone to record it on, just to make sure.
Well, I had a lot of the equipment sort of lying around because, I just did music and stuff for a while, and podcasting, of course. So, if you're already a podcaster, chances are you've got a mic laying around, and then instead of, talking about woke stuff, you just talk, you come up with a story and, put a bunch of voice actors in there, basically.
Greg's over here like, I've had a podcast for 4 years and I still don't have a mic.
I do have a mic. And then I threw it away because something happened. Oh, yeah, it was stuck to my old desk. So I was like, I can't get this off of here. So I had a vice.
Oh, you had the arm or whatever drilled into your old desk?
And I'm like, I can't get this off of here without destroying the desk. I destroyed the desk anyway.
Nice.
Awesome. You said you're doing panels. How many times have you been able to go to conventions and do that? Because that's first off, I want to eventually do that. So that's an awesome path.
Yeah, it's it actually sort of happened by accident. There is a convention. It was the first one that I ever went to out here in California called Comic-Con Revolution. And I wanted to go back the following year, but then by the time I remembered or thought about it, basically all the Artist Alley tables were already sold out, and I didn't want to pay $200 for a giant, exhibitor table or whatever. So I was like, let me see if there's another way. And I went to the panel section and I was like, let's see if this works. And basically you just fill out their info, and if they have room for you or if they like the idea, I guess they get back to you. And surprisingly, I got it. It's only a 2-day con, but they put us at 4 p.m. on Sunday. So they were saving the best for last, basically. And yeah, really there was one other time at LA Comic-Con where we did it. So basically it's been done twice at this point. And I think this would actually be a sort of an interesting segue into a different topic. I don't know how things are where you guys are. Where are you guys located, by the way? Somewhere northeast, right?
That's where he is.
And where are you, Dylan?
I am in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, all right, a southerner. That's what I used to be before I moved out to LA.
Yeah, we call this America.
I live in Libtardia. But yeah, don't tell them I said that. Anyway.
No.
So you guys, well, that's interesting that you guys, have your own company. You don't even live in and where are you, Greg?
upstate New York. So
Yes, I used to live in the same area. So ironically, we met online because he had posted on a local Craigslist. He then moved to Florida before I ever met him, and we were discussing the business. He moved back to the same area. We met up, became friends, started the company. I lived there for a few more years, and then I moved down here. So yeah, it was. That's how we initially met, was upstate New York.
Nice. What part of Florida did you live in?
shitty part. So Florida, no.
Ouch! That's where I'm from, buddy. Come on.
No. Venice.
Oh, so I mean, I've never been there. That's like? I mean, there's a lot of really sort of small towns in Florida. Is that one of them?
Yeah, it's kind of small. Like you can drive through there in like 20 minutes.
Is it like Central Florida, South, North?
South. Yeah, south. Like it's an hour away from Cape Coral.
Okay.
30 minutes from Port Charlotte, which is the Schenectady of Florida.
I mean, I've never been to Schenectady, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Bad enough that comedians joke about it, and only people that live in the area know the reference, and it's hilarious. I love when I hear that. They're like, it's not like some place like Schenectady, and nobody knows what that name is. Like it's a joke, but it's a real place, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, I've always heard it, but I mean, I have no idea what it's like.
It used to be nice before, like, like in the 60s and stuff.
The drugs moved in. Well, yeah, but anyway, so out here, of course, in California, we have San Diego Comic-Con and WonderCon, and they're all run by like the same company. And I guess you really have to like know someone in order to get into there. But anyway, I recently submitted to do the panel at WonderCon, but no dice, unfortunately. So yeah, I don't really know when I will get a chance to do the panel again, but it'll probably be at one of the non-SDCC owned conventions.
I was gonna say you should submit to, was it Nashville Comic-Con? I think it was that one. So because there's the one that we have here, I think is in June or July, and it's a pretty decent sized one. And I was applying for it, and then I saw a panelist one, and I was like, oh, so I applied for a panelist one because I was like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool to get in that way as well. And if they don't, if we don't end up getting in for the table, because I don't know how far in advance they book, but I'm hoping. I think I did it in February, so I'm hoping February is early enough to get into like a June or July one.
Oh, so you still? I mean, did they get back to you or?
No, this was like a couple weeks ago because it's like we're just getting March.
Oh, so you just applied? All right. Well, good luck to you.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's interesting because the weird thing too is like they ask you these questions about the panel. They don't give you any option to like say I'm also willing to jump on someone else's panel. They don't ask for any like credentials. Like for example, I submitted for basically discussing AI and its role in comic creation or not, and like some of the stuff I would talk about is more actually the business way you could use it. But for example, I've actually spoken in multiple settings on AI publicly, so it's like this would be a very cool thing if I could do this. But there's no way to like let them know that. They're not like, hey, what's a link to some references? And I'm like, it's kind of a bad way to like get panelists. I'm like, I wonder. So maybe it's really easy to get on because it's not really well built out. I'm like,
yeah, I mean, I would say the application process was very similar on this end. I mean, I at least provided a link to the podcast so they could go and see that I actually made one. But I mean, I looked at some of the other stuff that made it, and I was just like, oh, that made it over my idea.
Talk about this completely irrelevant thing to the comic industry and how we're going to make it about the comic industry.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say, there's like a bunch of panels that are, I would say, very, very last year in their content or whatever.
It's a good way to say it. They're like lettering panels, right?
Those exist? I mean, hey, I letter my own book.
Oh, I mean, I'll clarify. There's letters in the names of the panels, and that's about the important part.
Right. Oh, yeah. I gotcha. But yeah, I think it all boils down to, it's all about who you know. Like, I have a few like fellow creators And one guy, well, he said he got in because he said he was a returning like exhibitor or a returning artist, basically, even though he wasn't. And he's like, what are they gonna do? Arrest me? And
about doing that, because a couple of them asked that and all they do is say what year. Like that was the only follow-up question. And I'm like, I could make up a year that's long enough ago that they'd have to go look for it, and I doubt they'd care that much. And I've heard like stories of people who are now very successful in various industries share how they've done that before, where they're like, yeah, of course I did it at one point. And it's just like a quick filter, it just moves you to the next step.
yeah, I guess it's all about, ask for forgiveness instead of permission, maybe that sort of thing. I mean, I guess I didn't even really think about it when I tried to apply before, but next time I apply for a WonderCon or a San Diego Comic-Con, I'm just gonna do it because I'm tired of waiting. But the question is like, what is the criteria? It's like I send them my website. I've got my books on there. Like the books like aren't crap for the most part. I mean, I think they're not crap. Like, what more do you need? I mean, I guess maybe more books. And and I guess
like they don't even get to it. Like it could be more like you submit it because you're not a repeat person. You're put on a secondary list to get looked at, and then they just look at it in order and they just don't get to you. Because like honestly, like that's a really big thing for anything. Job applications are like that. You submit so many and they're like, yep, all done. And like these just never get looked at. They never get replied to. So like a lot of the times it's that filtration process, and they can do other stuff like, again, like job applications where they're looking for one key word that you didn't say, and because it's not there, they never look at your stuff. So
sure.
Stupid stuff like that too.
Yeah, I mean, just like with jobs, I mean, there's more cons than there are creators. I mean, and especially for, in a very heavily populated area like Los Angeles. I can only imagine, everyone's chomping at the bit to get a table at San Diego Comic-Con because, allegedly it's like the biggest one in the world. So
it's just funny. It's only the biggest in clout. New York is bigger by like tens of thousands. And then I just found out even MegaCon is like either the same size or bigger than San Diego Comic-Con. It's just the clout that comes with San Diego Comic-Con.
Sure. I mean, it's because all the Hollywood phonies show up at San Diego Comic-Con. And I mean, I'll say I went to San Diego Comic-Con once, and I did have a good time. And there was still plenty of, comic book stuff to be had there. But yeah, I mean, I was working there, which is how I was able to get in. And what I was doing was like a usher for one of the rooms. And I guess it was like a media room. They were like having panels for just like sitcoms and like TV shows that had like absolutely nothing to do with comics. And it's just like, I would rather this not be here. Let's get rid of this and pack it with, more, comic related stuff. But
I think the weird thing too is there is so much in comics and then tangentially tied to the films and animations that are made from them that you really don't need to expand outside of that to keep it a Comic-Con. There's already like anime cons and what's it called? Like pop culture cons.
Yes, exactly.
You should separate them, make a pop culture con and make a comic con. And like that's the thing that kind of sucks, is that because San Diego is the Comic-Con, like they were going after other conventions for using the phrase Comic-Con.
I remember that. That's so bizarre.
It must have fallen through because everyone freaking uses it still. And it's like, you can't really, like, a convention is a thing. A comic is just the description of what the convention's about. You can't really coin that if everybody's been doing it for the last, dozens of decades. It's like, it's crazy to think that, like, I don't know. It's just funny that like just disappeared.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb. But yeah, it's like, I think it's funny that you mentioned that. They actually have like it's called San Diego Comic Fest. Yep. And it's like the guys who created San Diego Comic-Con, I mean, they basically saw, that, all those phonies and crap that has nothing to do with comics, were like completely overrunning San Diego Comic-Con. So now they have this San Diego Comic Fest, which is supposed to be, 100% comic centric, basically.
That's actually pretty cool. Like we're going to what's it called? The Indie Comic Creator Con in Connecticut. Damn, that is a lot of these. the indie, because they just call it the IC3 too, because it's the Indie Comic Creator Con, and that's I think next Saturday. And the whole point is that it's not just comics; it is just independent comics, which is really cool. So
that is cool.
It's been this is this their second or third year, Greg? Yeah, it's brand new. So like even the idea of creating these is new, and it's cool because like independent storytelling is getting way better. Just because I think more people found it accessible. Oh, maybe Greg's gonna disappear. I think more people found it accessible. Oh, he said his food was coming. I forgot about that.
Right.
Where's he going? I think it's more accessible now to get to create a comic. Like for example, if you wanted to learn how to draw, you had to go to like courses or know that a book existed to teach you. And instead you go online and you can learn for free. And then there's paid courses, etc. So I think the creation process has been slowly getting further and further more documented than it was in the past. So more and more people are capable of creating comics. And because of all visual medias, forms of media, like that is the cheapest one, even though it's expensive. So it's like, yeah, if you want to create a film, it's really expensive. You want an animation, it's really expensive. You want to create a comic, it's pretty expensive, but it's way more affordable. So if you've got a cool idea you want to see visually represented, that's one of the greatest ways that you can do it. And so I'm really hoping that we see a furtherance of that growth of independent creators, because it's cool to see the stuff that they're making.
Yeah, I mean that sounds amazing. I mean, when I really got into comics in the 90s, like basically the indies were the hip thing to read. That was like when like Image the first took off, and then like Dark Horse was going on, and Malibu and all that. And that is stuff that I thought was like the best. I didn't even really, of course, like there was I read like a few Marvel books here and there, but I was like, ooh, give me Wildcats and Youngblood over the Avengers any day of the week. But I mean, we've seen how things lasted and how it ended up and everything. But yeah, that'd be great if it ended up that way. And I mean, and then there's the unfortunate sort of state of the big two anyway. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't even read any Marvel or DC comics anymore, and I still look at them at least from time just to give it a chance. I'm like, oh, they'll get it right this time. Like, they're not going to screw up Deadpool this time, or they're not going to make fun of Cable's pouches in this book, but they do it every time, and it's just, I don't know.
It's like even in the film aspect, like the MCU, like no, I actually very much enjoyed that up until what was it, Endgame, like this building up of this universe. Very cool to see, because I think that also brought back to life comics as well, in the sense of like people going like, wow, let me go explore that. And in that journey of exploring comics in general, I think more and more people also got exposed to the indies. So I do like it for that. But yeah, like even the trajectory of how those films are now going, where I don't watch them anymore. And even the most recent Deadpool, like I loved it. It was very fun. But like I found out later too that the was it the Cavalrine, like the Henry Cavill's Wolverine character had a whole fight scene that was supposed to be in the movie. It was in his contract to be in the movie, and they canned it because of some like political BS or something with him. And so, like, literally, like Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are like trying to fight to get that released, at least into the deleted Blu-ray, or deleted scenes for the Blu-ray, because it just doesn't. There's no way to watch it right now, and it's like that's crazy. Like you keep like this is the one film where you literally can't fuck it up because they already gave you all like they're giving them free reign, and they're like, but what if we just took something away and then also let you find out about it? Like it's a bold move, Cotton.
Yeah, speaking of Deadpool 3, like it was cool at the beginning when they were going through all the the multiverse stuff, and they went to the it's like the cover of, I think it's Hulk, Incredible Hulk. Like,
is it where there's skulls everywhere?
No, that's the I think one of the future ones. I think it's supposed to be like the Apocalypse world, but there's it's the one where he's fighting the Hulk, and he puts out his claws, and you can see the Hulk's reflection in his yeah. If only some guy did an homage cover like that.
Nice. Yeah, that's very cool.
We would talk.
I love doing that, by the way, that the homage covers. Like that's something where we have a couple of our most recent ones, actually most of our most recent ones, we kind of like, pay homage to a few of these, classics. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It was like, let me make your screen bigger and then put that back up again. We do.
Dear listener / reader, if you love Incredible Hulk 282, then make sure you check out Escape to Earth #3. It's just like that cover, but different.
Yeah, that's awesome, though. I love that.
Thanks.
Hey, he's back.
Yeah,
the covers that are resembling various other covers.
What are can you tell me what those are references to, please?
This is the Fifth Element.
Oh, right. Why can't I see that? Oh, wait, it's Star Wars?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Once you see them, full. Like if you were holding it yourself, it's very obvious that he's going like this.
Are you guys big fans of the Fifth Element?
I like the movie. Like it's fun.
I mean, I didn't mean the actual element, but yeah, the movie.
I'm talking about the movie. I'm saying like I'm not like I don't watch it every third month kind of thing, but like I used to watch it as a kid and I really liked it. It was just fun.
Sure, yeah, I went and saw it in the theater back in the day. I look at it as like Walt Disney's Blade Runner. Right. Because it has all that goofy humor in there for some reason, but then it still has all this like awesome, dystopian looking effects and everything. But I don't know. It's an interesting film for sure.
Yeah, I put it alongside. Did you ever see the movie Mystery Men?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cult classic. One of those things that it's like, there's some people who've never heard of it, and then the people who've heard of it, really like it for the fact that it's this weird eclectic thing that really only existed once and nowhere else. And so that's kind of why I like when I mention Mystery Men, people either have never heard of it or if they heard of it, they've watched it. It's not something that they heard in passing.
Based off of a random Dark Horse comic from the 90s.
Yeah.
And Dark Horse, I mean, they were on fire with movies back in the 90s. Barbed Wire, huh? Who remembers Barbed Wire? Anyone? Time Cop.
Oh my God, Time Cop. Yeah.
Actually, I do like Time Cop.
That stuff to come back. Like I loved Mystery Men. It's so funny. I was helping clean my dad's basement because he had a big flood and had to move a bunch of boxes and stuff. So we were organizing the stuff, and I came across a VHS for what's it called, Mystery Men, and my dad still had the VHS hooked up to the TV, so I ended up in. And it was so funny because I didn't realize. I think we either forgot to return it or we bought it from the return. Like there's a pile at Blockbusters where they had films that were like Overwatched or something, so they sold them. Right. And so we ended up putting it in, and first off, it was at the end of the film, so I had to record it or rewind it because we were not kind. And I hit the rewind button, forgot what that sound was. So it's like got to get all that nostalgia, and then when it started with a Blockbuster commercial, and I'm like, did we pay? It was super fun.
Nice.
Yeah, go Mystery Men.
So quick question, because I was telling Greg earlier, I was diving into you guys' videos on YouTube. Who did the animation for like the Mittens trailer?
Oh, that was J.R. Harris. Yeah.
So is that a guy that you guys just know, or is he a SeerNova contributor?
He's like our go-to artist for that series. He's not like under us or anything, but yeah, we have him on our website and stuff because he's definitely part of the team, but he does his own stuff.
Oh, so he drew the book and then he also did the animation for the trailer?
Yep.
Oh, what a talented guy. Very cool.
Yeah. It's funny too because you're like, it's like, do you know who did the trailer for? And then I'm like, anything other than Mittens, that was me. And if so, don't judge me. And then yeah, Mittens is the one that he did, and it looks great.
That's cool. Yeah, I've got a trailer for Escape to Earth also. But yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it has animation as much as I can do with just Premiere. Like I could have thrown it in After Effects, but I just don't know that program very well. But I know Premiere pretty well.
I'll be honest. If you know Premiere, After Effects, if you just Google a tutorial, or you're like, how do I make a laser beam? How do I do a slash? There are so many things for After Effects that the first time I ever opened the program from beginning to end, I was designing. I had some client who I told him, it was actually technically a coworker of mine. I'm like, oh, I built a logo for another one of our coworkers because he has a little side business. And he goes, can you make animated logos? So I lied and said, sure. And so I ended up in 3 hours time, like I drew up what I wanted by pencil. And then I was like, okay, let me see if I can find that. In 3 hours time, I watched the tutorials and built the animated logo he now uses for that little side project he's got. It's like, it was very quick because as long as you know what you're looking for, it's easy to use it. Some of the stuff is time consuming just based on the fact that you have to like, point by point. But if you have like, say, the Creative Cloud and you have the new one, there's tons of like automations and stuff for that now. So like, stuff like tracking, and being able to move things like that. So I would highly recommend if you just Google tutorial After Effects and then whatever the thing is, like I want sparks, I want flash, I want shift. Like there are endless tutorials and they're all very, very good. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I've dabbled a little bit. I'm just I've been using Premiere for years, so just a little more confident on that one than I am with the After Effects. But I hear you. I'm definitely you're right. If anything you want to make, you can learn about it on YouTube.
I honestly, I always laugh too because I work with a lot of people in different industries, and I'll hear them, be like, "How'd you do this?" And I'm like, I looked it up.
Yeah, right.
I did step one, which was ask the question, "How do I do this?"
Yeah, I wasn't a lazy bastard. That's how I did it.
It's funny though, because like I get it. Like a lot of the stuff, even if you do look it up, if you like, Premiere, so learning another Adobe program isn't an excessive leap. But someone who's never used an Adobe program, I totally get. Like you could look at that and you're just like, what the hell are they doing? Let me put this at half speed. Now it takes 3 hours to watch a 45-minute video you're trying to get through. So I get it.
Yeah, that's like me and Blender these days. Just because I just don't know anything about 3D animation or rendering or anything, because I'm trying to get to. I'm sure this is what every comic creator wants. I'm sure you guys do too. Like, got a 3D printer and I'd like to make my own action figures.
And I'd like to make my own action figures.
Well,
start a community of people that own a 3D printer and want to make action figures, but not have yet to make those action figures.
I don't know how riveting this is for listeners, but what 3D printer do you have?
I'll be honest, if you asked me that a year ago, I could answer that. I have not touched it since I assembled it and tested it one time, and I cannot for life remember the name. All I know is that I got it from my cousin who had gotten a new one, so I got this one from him, and it's super assemble.
Ender 3, probably.
That sounds familiar.
I'd
be like, yes, that one. It was like a really easy to assemble one, although it was missing a key component I had to go buy, which was a very, very specific ball bearing. And I'm like, I literally had to go to a ball bearing like manufacturer to get this thing. I was like, how does nobody have this?
Ball bearings are us.
Yeah.
Still open.
No, it was, I actually super lucked out because I'm here in Nashville. There's a couple of manufacturers here. And so I ended up going there. We had to go into like a back room and like go to these specific rack of specialized ones. And he's like, is it this one? And I'm like, yeah, that's actually the one I'm looking for. He's like, sure. And I'm like, I was an engineer in my past life. I'm actually pretty sure.
So, what is your role, Dylan, in the SeerNova world? So, Greg, you're the writer, right?
Yep.
I'm the writer. What do you do, Dylan?
So I judge Greg. That's what I do. To do better. So I consider myself like the editor.
So you're the manager. You're the manager.
I edited though too. So like I'll actually go through and help I can improve the plots and story arcs and things like that. I also handle all the technical stuff. So I built the website and the platform that we have for all of that. I help with like graphic design for certain things, like some of the Kickstarters. I'll build out the graphics for them when we can't get a designer for them. I do the production of the comic, meaning like taking the artwork and putting it into InDesign and mapping it so it can be printed.
I know all about that, man. Greg, you're lucky. I wish I had a Dylan.
Yeah, so I kind of do a lot of the technical stuff, and then super recently, only because I've been practicing drawing again because I got into it a while ago. I ended up dabbling with creating the logo for our next comic issue that's coming out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, super simple, but I kind of wanted it clean for this one, and I hope to like add intricacies to it as the character develops in his journey. So it's kind of fun, but yeah, like so I've done the other logos for our comics other than Mittens, just because it was one of those things that Greg knows too. Like I'm now working with the production company as well to like, and because of that, I now know it's called a comic logo. I just figured it was like the comic title. And I never like looked into how to make them. So now I have like at least more information on it. So I made the ones for our Seer Chronicles, ink and scales, and I think that's it. Yeah, that's all the ones I made for. So now it's kind of like, how can I, get a little better at it so I can actually add them. And I do stuff like we have a newspaper that's in one of our comic series. Although ironically, that's the one we're canning that one, but we are keeping the newspaper. And I basically use InDesign to map out a newspaper, lay it out into comic book format, and then put that in there. So like I'll write articles in there to make it look, like it's a real newspaper, which is awesome.
Hold on, wait. I need to wrap my head around what you just said there. The newspaper, it's an in-world newspaper.
Correct.
Part of which comic?
So it's technically part of all of the comic series, but the one that it's visible in is the Seer Chronicles, but it'll be getting moved over to our new series called Fireproof. But yeah, we write 1 to 2 pages of a newspaper with like the headline. Yeah, there you go. Like, so I grab an image from the comic, make it like it's a photo. I then write a story from the perspective of like a journalist, and then like I don't remember if it was that issue. Was it that issue or no? It's this new one that we're doing. Like this new issue that we have that'll be coming out has a story in there referencing something happening in a different comic. And so because they're in the same universe, it's like, oh, over in this city, some vigilante did X, Y, and Z, right? So it's like because of that, like we even have like if you read them, the first issue we actually have a coupon, or no, is it the second issue? Yeah, the second issue we have a coupon that for a burger joint that's in our world, but the code actually works on our online store.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So like, yeah, we do like ridiculous world building. That's another thing I help Greg with. Like we basically go back and forth trying to figure out like the most ridiculous thing. Like here's one character we've seen one time. What's his family life like? We've gone through that, building out databases of characters and worlds and cities and, what we're doing with that. So I help a lot with the world building too.
I get exactly. So it's basically like the Daily Bugle, more or less, right?
Yes. We call it the Daily Journal, I think.
Nice. And it also reminds me of, again, back in the 90s, like one of my favorite companies was like Malibu, and they made the Ultraverse, and they had the what was called Ultra Monthly like magazine, which was an in-universe magazine that just talked about what was going on in the world, basically. And yeah, and it came out every month.
One of our goals was to, and we actually have this. We have a Twitter account, and we wanted it to be like it was telling real time about this, and then eventually actually make a full newspaper that we could that could be like a product we sell, or just something that would be like accessible online, for example, like an online newspaper. But yeah, we love the world building stuff, like simple things like this overarching company that's doing a bunch of like, it's basically the thing that's kind of moving everything along, but you won't know that for tons of issues. We just put its logo like hidden somewhere in one of the comics and then another comic, and it's just in the background. And I've done stuff where, like, for example, like I said, I don't draw the comics, but I have gone and taken these logos, matched them to the comic, bend them to whatever product they might be on, roughen them up or lighten them up, depending. I'll add shading and lighting. Our comic for the for Ink, which is all about this mystical tattoo that gives them powers. There's this whole ancient lore behind it. And so there's this book, and Greg and I worked on creating a new language. I then created an entire typable font, wrote up an entire story, and then the book that our artist drew. And then when there were holes and lighting on it, I like faded it appropriately. So like, yeah, we go a little intense with the world building. So like there's he's pulling it up. there is an ancient book that looks like there's gibberish in it, but if you actually translate it, it's a full story. And then the comic, really the physical version, we created a decipher or a site, no, not decipher, right? Decryptor, right?
That's awesome. That's
way over the top. Yeah, it's one of those.
amazing.
I don't think one person reads those in the future because, like, and not only that, some of them are bent so much you can't read them, but I still did it anyways. Like, it's one of those things where you'll get the first part of the story, and maybe at some point in the future, maybe we'll make a book, and like it'll be pretty cool.
Another question I want to ask you guys is, do you think it's worth it having your own standalone like website these days?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, we actually had a platform we were building to help get a bunch of indie creators into one place, and we actually realized that was worse than having a single page. And first off, I'm a web developer and I help with SEO with clients, totally separate from this. Like, that's what I do, is digital marketing. And from the observation of many other indie creators and the fact that some of them are on joint platforms and some of them are standalone, the standalone ones always do better because you can optimize for something as opposed to it being random. So because of that, you could have like articles that talk about your world building and dive deep. So like if your comic's about sci-fi or superheroes or horror or whatever it's about, you can dive so much deeper into that on your website, attracting people who might not have otherwise found you other than like maybe this article. So a small example was I wrote a blog article on our site, top 10 comics, indie comics for 2024, just to showcase comics. Yeah, somebody stole it. It's funny. They ripped it from our page and put it onto their page. It even says SeerNova Comics on it. Like, ridiculous. But the whole point was that it's a way to attract people so that we can get their email list, or so we can get their emails and actually start building our audience. Because an email list, by far, across all the people that run Kickstarter campaigns and get crowdfunding and launch new projects, the larger your email list, the better you're going to do. The more money you'll have, the more likely you'll find those true fans.
Absolutely.
So yes, I do that. And one of the fastest ways to grow an email list too, let's say you have more than one comic, or if you have something like an anthology, you can give away like one story in it, or a couple of pages of the comic, or the first issue of a comic for free digitally, just to collect emails from people stumbling on the site. Yeah, it's super impactful.
Yeah, I do that. Like before I committed to completing the entire first issue of Escape to Earth, I just did like a teaser for like the first 8 pages or something. But did the old ash can, as it used to be called in the biz.
Oh, we ash cans. We want to make some, so that's something that we're looking to do.
Yeah, I handed them all out at LA Comic-Con, but I saved like 2 or something. But yeah, I wish it was cheaper to print stuff. You know, who do you guys use for your printer?
We use Comics Wellsprings.
Oh, all right. So everyone, I've noticed because I just released my 3rd issue like a month or 2 ago, and I ordered like the same amount as the 2nd issue, but I noticed like the price had gone up even higher. It's like that.
It'll drop soon because the biggest reason it was getting higher in general is that wood has gone up in price, which obviously paper. So like lumber, for example, if you wanted 2x4s, there was like a 2-year window where it increased by 600% in cost. So now just translate that to paper where it has to go through another processing phase. So yeah, it definitely jumped up in price. I'm hoping, in the near future, with new things happening, that it'll fix the price a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna try to like look for maybe try to find a local printer.
Ready Comics is closer to you. They're in Arizona. They actually do drop ship printing, meaning they'll do one-off prints. And I actually was in talks with them, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago now, maybe longer. And basically they're willing to work with you where if you have them on your website, you could give them access to the back end to look at, like, let's say you have a WordPress site with WooCommerce or something like that. Mm-hmm. You can store access so that if any comics get ordered, they would print it when it gets ordered. And it's slightly more to do it one-off like that, but the difference is then you're not bulk ordering in the upfront, and you're not getting that huge loss of cost. And now they're just getting them when they want them. And then the alternative And by the way, I highly recommend this. If you go to a convention, we have not done this. I'm going to make sure we do this for the next ones. You can have something at your table where it's like, hey, give us your email and we'll send you a digital version of of something, right? And that way you're collecting emails at conventions, because that way, even if they don't buy it, you at least are getting a collection of people who are interested in comics. And the secret sauce of that is if you get a big enough email list, you can take that stuff and make Facebook ads with them, because now you have a targetable audience that you can create lookalike audiences and other fun stuff from. So highly recommend that.
Yeah, I actually do that. And but one thing I've noticed is, when you when you engage someone, at a con, and they want to be polite because they don't want to buy anything, they usually offer up their email instead. At least that's how it was for me at the last con that I went to.
It is something where like you might be getting emails from people who might never buy, but the difference is at least there's somebody who's interested in comic conventions, meaning you've already kind of, like, it's not a random dude's email. It's at least in the space. And eventually what could happen is they could get it hit with an email and be like, here's the new comic blank. And then one of their friends one day is talking to them about something like, oh, that's so weird. I got an email from this thing I signed up for at a convention and they have this comic just like this. Maybe you should check it out. So you're at least in the circles of people that are interested in it. So I still think it's very valuable, even if you do get people that are just like, no, I don't need the comic.
No, of course. I mean, I wasn't disparaging it. I was just saying that's what happens.
Yeah. We have a QR code that almost didn't work on our banner that we got printed.
Yeah. I bought it was a dynamic QR code, which I was not aware of. And because of that, you have to pay to maintain it, which I wasn't aware of. They didn't make that obvious. And then all of a sudden, I printed it onto a retractable banner. So it's expensive. We show up to the convention and it doesn't work. And I'm like, what the hell? So I start digging into it and they're like, oh yeah, your free trial's up. I'm like, free trial?
Oh.
How much? $139 a year to turn this thing back on. And I'm like, son of a... I'm like, they just stole it from me because it's already printed. I'd have to print a whole new one or like paint over the one or put a sticker and make it look like garbage. I'm like, no. So now I at least can, it's at least a dynamic one. So if I want, I can go in and change where it goes.
So you paid it?
I had to. It was last second. I'm at the convention and it was like.
It was the first con that we did too.
Yeah, it was the very first convention we did. I'm like, I can't have this thing not work the very first time we're going to test this out.
We're the only people that were like tabling, but still.
Yeah, it was super small.
What con was this?
It was actually
my house. No.
So it was like an D&D convention, and so it was supposed to be us and then an actual comic book shop, but they actually never showed up. So it was just us. We actually ended up selling, a decent amount of comics, which was cool. But yeah, it was very much a last minute thing.
And that was going to be my follow-up question there. So you went to a D&D con. Like, have you ever tried going to a other sort of like non-comic specific con, like a
Silver Con,
Silver Screen Con in Massachusetts.
Is that a horror con?
Yep, I really want to go because it's like one of my favorite bands. And I just want to
which band?
It's one of his favorite bands. He had a tattoo,
Yeah.
Ice Cream Kills.
Oh, all right, I've heard of that. Yeah.
So I really want to go.
I mean, what?
List, and I'm like,
oh, so you got waitlisted? See, just like me.
It's a small convention. I think it's like their 4th or 5th year. So like they're fourth, yeah. So it's very new to them. And so I think what happened was the first year was probably small. Second year, people found out about it. We're at the 4th year now, and I think last year we just applied too late. And so this year it was just like, yeah, it's like we applied earlier, but they were just booked already. So yeah.
Last year I couldn't do it, and then there's a girl that I knew that went there first time she did it, and I was like, how did you do that? And she has a candle business, Modern Wick. It's called Modern Wick Craft, like witchy kind of stuff. And I was like, how'd you do that? And then she's like, I applied, and I'm like, I fucking tried and it didn't work. And she's like, oh yeah, it was broke at one point. I was like, yeah, the time that I was trying to.
Oh, that sounds like my kind of luck sometimes, I tell you. But yeah, every time I try to inquire, like for non-comic book ones, like I think there was like originally when I, first printed out my first issue, and I'm just like, oh, well, where can I go? Like, there's like a few retro video game conventions around here. And I emailed them and asked, and they're like, oh, sure, our tables are X amount of money, but we can't be responsible if you don't sell any books. Like, I mean, that just, says it all right there. I mean, it sounds like, people have showed up and tried and, didn't really have much action. But I figure if you have like a variant cover that has your characters that looks like a, Nintendo game or something, then you might have better luck. I don't know.
I was going to say, we literally have artwork that we had created for the Mitten series that has like Star Fox and what was it? Smash Brothers and Diddy Kong Racing, the one that nobody can guess. Yeah. So I do agree that sometimes you want to have something that blends, but we also went to, Toying Around, which was like a block party. And we actually made a bunch of money there. And the first half was rained out. Like, we were worried our comics were going to get destroyed because it was like hurricane rain out of nowhere.
Oh, no.
An hour. We had no sides on our gazebo. And not only that, my little sister gave me the gazebo, which I was super grateful for, because if we did not have it, we would have been screwed. And what ended up happening was it was raining so hard that the vent on the top started collecting bounced water, and then it dripped down the metal frame and started dripping on our stuff. Out of sheer coincidence, I just happened to have put all of our comics into sleeves. I don't know why. I told Greg, I'm like, we should put them into sleeves, maybe make them heavier for the wind. I don't know. I don't remember what I was thinking. I'm just like, thank God we did that, because I saw that first big drop land on one of the comics and bounce off. I was like, oh shit.
And I think it landed on the new
on the foil cover. I was so worried. I was like, oh shit, that's the expensive one too. So we ended up like throwing shirts over the top of it to cover it. It's hilarious. But yeah, after it all dried up, we ended up making a decent amount of money. And then literally at the last second, one of the people who was helping like run the event was walking by, and he's like, hey, how you been doing today? And I'm like, actually I said, howdy, 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 as he's walking by. And he's like, oh, hey, how you doing? I go, pretty good. I say howdy, howdy to everybody walking by. And most of the time they buy everything at the table. He's like, haha, you're not going to get me though. And I literally sold him every one of our comics but one, and I think that was it. And his friend bought him a couple too. It was hilarious. But yeah, if you're charismatic, you can get some decent sales, especially if kind of like how you said the indie comics, those the TMNT back then. Like, it is interesting to be like, wow, look at this story. Like, not everybody knows about it yet, but it's getting, it looks like it's doing something. So I think that even if you're at a convention that's not comic related, if you've got charisma and you've got a good story you're selling and a good story to sell it, you can pretty much sell anywhere. You can go to a farmer's market, to be honest. Like, it's just making sure to pull in the right people.
Right. True that.
Yeah. Like, do you like cats? Do you like Ace? Then we've got a comic.
Or if someone's like,
do you like Huey Lewis in the news?
if somebody's dressed up like a character that I know and I can do the voice, that kind of attracts people. So.
Oh, sure. Like, yeah, that's easy get, or, commenting on T-shirts, that sort of thing.
He does that all the time. Yeah. Like,
that's why they're
like, oh, I like your shirt. And then they don't hear you. And then they have to like, he can be loud. And then they're like, wait, what? And then they come to the table. He's like, I like your shirt. And then I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, that was another one too, where we got some people to come up to us just because I was commenting on their shirt or something. And by doing that, you might sell that person, but you also have people hovering around your table. So now people are like, oh, what's that interesting thing going on over there?
Sure.
So it's the Robert Cialdini's social proof. That's the thing you're building up. It's like just people. It's like was it a shawarma cart? There's something in New York City where I think there's an owner that literally owns both carts, but he has it's him and his brother that have them, and they're across the street from each other. And one of them has a line down the street, and one of them is almost always unavailable, or not unavailable, always open. Like, you can just go up and order one. They sell identical food, right? Line down the street, across the street, no line, but people just see the line and they're like, oh, it must be better.
Yeah, that's what my wife always does. I'm like, hey, let's go eat over there. And she's like, there's no one in line for it, so it must not be good. Okay, whatever.
It's crazy. There's a book called Influence by Robert Cialdini, and he talks about that. And he doesn't tell it to you so you can use it, although you can, like, he's not like against using it, but he's like, just be aware that this is so powerful, like you would fall prey to it. And this is how you avoid falling prey to it. Because the negative part of social proof he mentioned was, what's it called? Same thing, actually, New York City, except that, you're choking. And what happens is you're like randomly waving around. And because nobody's immediately reacting, everybody else simultaneously goes, well, if it was actually bad or real, someone else would have reacted by now, right? And so they walk by it. And the worst case I've ever heard of, there was a dude who got hit by a car in New York City and was left in the road for 3 days. 3 days before he's picked up. I was like, that's nuts. And it's just because everyone else was like, oh, it must be some homeless dude doing something. Like, they all thought someone else would take care of it. And that's why it's like, if you're ever in a bad negative situation in a major city, you need to be like, you call 911, you come to the Heimlich, like you do that. Like, you have to be super specific. Like, I'm putting all this weight on your shoulders, and that will actually get other people to start helping as well. But it's like, so it's got a positive and negative, but knowing that, like, you get people to come up to your table at a convention. Actually, my brother and I just did this at an internship fair. We were trying to get people to come to our table, and my brother just stands in front of the table. People will walk up to the table. We are wearing the same shirt with the company logo on it, and they'll talk to me as if he's just some other guy hanging out at the table. It's hilarious. I watched it happen like at least 2 or 3 times where they walk up, they even look at him and they're like, oh, like, you're not talking right now, right? I can jump in. Hey, how's it? Can you tell me about your company? I'm like, yeah, he's the producer. Talk to him.
That's pretty interesting. I'm gonna try that next time.
There's a marketing tip that Dylan taught me at Saratoga Comic-Con. We did the spring one last year, and he's like, so just when someone starts to get interested, just hand it to them.
Oh yeah, you always have to.
And I'm like, oh, and that works a lot.
Yeah, it's there's a salesman, Zig Ziglar, passed away since, but he has tons of sales training, and one of the things is like the ownership close, like let them hold it, so they're like, wow, this feels good to hold, like, oh wow, this is cool art, and it's like they feel like it's already theirs, and so it's much easier. And the thing too is, like, people have to realize with indie comics specifically, you are trying to pitch somebody on an almost brand new idea for the most part. Right. And if you don't have, if you don't know how afraid people are of change, like, you won't realize that there is no reason for them to buy your comic. You need to look up that reason in their head and then convince them it was their idea. Right. And and if your story's good, like, you shouldn't feel bad about convincing someone to at least consider it.
No way. How expensive these things are.
Yeah.
You'd be paying triple for it.
Actually, that's really funny. We ended up doubling or more than doubling our price and saw 0 difference in sales.
Wow. Yeah. My wife convinced me to, because she actually came with me to the last con that I went to, for the first time. And she sort of convinced me to raise the price, and it's still sold about the same amount.
Yeah, it's like, I think that it's kind of like video games. Video games have been $60 since 1991, and like they've never changed. And the weird thing is, I feel like comics were in a similar route. Like, we were charging $5 for our comics, thinking like, I hope someone will spend $5 on a comic. We shifted it to 10. Sometimes it's easier because I'll be like, oh, it's 10. But if you get 2, I can do 15. And it's like, obviously, if I went from 5 to 10, we can still make profit on it, which means I have a lot more wiggle room to actually give discounts. And then what I can do is go, you know what? If you buy both comics, for the $20, I'll toss in these 6 extra, an art print, a bookmark,
right,
which costs 20 cents each. They don't cost much more. And so for me spending $1, I could sell 2 comics now. And I did the same thing where we have plushies for one of our comic series. And one lady liked one, but her boyfriend liked the other one. And so I was like, how's this? If you buy both of them, I'll give you the comics for free. And she was like, oh, sold. And it's like, we still were able to make money on it. And now we do as our merchandise. And we made less money than if I sold either one of them individually. But the whole idea was like, now I can actually get fans with our comics, with merchandise that's sitting in their house. And it's hard to throw stuff like that out. Like, people like,
sure.
So just having that as a reminder to them, that, oh, this world exists. So if they're on our email list now, which again, we got to get better at doing that at conventions, but we get their email and all of a sudden we have a new Kickstarter for that. There's somebody who's already in their head mentally invested in 2 comics and the plushies. And now the third one's coming out. Well, I got to get the third one.
Of course.
Yeah. So, and that's how you slowly build any fan base of any type, of any, form of entertainment. It's like, get them invested in the universe, get them invested in, that world, and then be like, yeah, like I'm going to keep going if you're interested.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of like what, what I talk about when I do the panel for the audio drama. Basically, it's a way to hook in people who, maybe wouldn't even normally read comics. Like, and there's a lot of audio dramas for comics. Like, if you go on like the Hoopla app, I don't know if do you know that app? Hoopla?
No, what's that?
Like, if you have a library card, you can basically access all these books, movies, and audio books like for free, basically. Oh, we lost you, Dylan.
He's talking, but
that's I hit the mute button. That's Overdrive or Libby made
that
by
one too. Yeah, I think they got rid of Overdrive and they call it something else now or something. But
bought Libby, so I think they just call it Libby now because like library or whatever. But it's fun because you put a library card in there. I get audiobooks for free, and it's funny because you still have to wait for them even though it's digital because actually track it, which is fun.
Right.
It's very cool. Like that. Exactly. That's a great way. That's one of the things Greg and I have been talking about is how to get our comics into libraries. And if you think about it, if you could give them an ebook version of it, and now they can do the same thing, put it on something like Libby, get the audio. Like that's a great idea.
There was a thing that we did for the Mittens 3 campaign. It's still being made. And Dylan came up with the idea. Do you remember those I Spy books?
You mean like where you try to find something in there, like Where's Waldo?
Yeah, Where's Waldo?
Yeah.
So we're having one of those made for like Mittens. And we're gonna
nice.
put those in like libraries and stuff. So
you could also, I know there's a website where you can upload basically any image or any page, and it'll basically turn it into like a coloring book page. Like I could see that working well for Mittens. I mean, I was thinking about doing that for my book, even though it's not really for kids.
What's the name of that?
Oh, shoot. Just Google it. I don't know it off the top of my head. I think it might have been a TikTok that I saved somewhere because yeah. But I'm sure if you Google it, it'll pop up.
Dude.
What?
It looks like Canva does it too. It looks like they have an app that does it. Oh, Coloring Book AI I just found.
There you go.
We were
what a crazy name.
Yeah. Yes. Original.
We were gonna do a coloring book if we hit a certain stretch goal for the third Mittens too, but we didn't hit that. And then the final stretch goal, which we also didn't hit, was gonna be at like $8,000, which we hit. We got like something. Was like he was gonna animate like a pilot episode because my dad always said to me, I could see this as like a show. And I'm like, well, that's cool. So I'm like, yeah, we should try to do like a pilot episode of just that. And then like, maybe one day we can actually be like, yeah, we can make this.
Awesome. Well, I mean, just wait a little bit long enough and then some AI site will do it for you.
And all the animators can hate on us.
No, unfortunately, you can't stop progress.
Yeah, it's funny. That's actually, I mentioned that earlier, the panel that I want to do for any convention, I would like to do it. They're talking about AI and comics. And my big thing, it's like, for us, there have been ideas that Greg as a writer cannot visually express. And because of that, how do you hire an artist? You have to pay 15 artists to make concept art. That's unreasonable. So instead, you know what happens? The project won't get made. Instead, Greg goes over to Midjourney or Dolly and goes, I'm looking for something like this. Make me a design. A bunch of stuff comes up. Nah, make it more like this. Boom. There it is. Can you draw this? And now suddenly an artist is getting paid because of AI, not realizing that they never would have been paid if it wasn't for the AI.
Right.
It's like, I don't think people see the possibility. Everyone's always worried that it's going to take their coin, where it's like, you could actually tell people like, hey, use ChatGPT, use Midjourney, come up with the concept art, and then when you got something, come to me and I can draw that for you in a comic, sequential series, because AI is still a ways off before it can make sequential art look good.
Right. Oh, hey, I'm right there with you, Dylan. Like I guess for AI in the way that you just sort of described it. But man, there's some people who are like totally misusing it. There's like this guy on what did I do with it? This guy on TikTok. He's got his own like little commercial and stuff, and he's like, "Hi, I'm so and so. I made this book," and he never mentions that it's all AI art. And my wife.
Oh, that is AI.
Yes, it is, and that's the thing.
Really
like,
funny.
yeah,
that dude reached out to me on Upwork like years ago. to like write it, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So.
And if you think that where AI art is now is like good enough for your story, that's fine, but you got to tell people in advance before they give you their money.
I think even telling people, even when AI does become incredible, I still think it should be a requirement, because it's like GMOs. It's like it might still look like the same thing, but if me as a consumer should have the right to know that it's made by this, because for example, like I think that some artists are going to freak out when AI comes out and it does make perfect sequential artwork. But the thing that they don't understand is this is universally true. It has always happened. Technology comes out, and then a simultaneous opposing market appears of like, hey, do you know how it's really cheap to get stuff from China now? Well, now it's USA made and more expensive. You still want it? And everyone's like, hell yeah, I want it because it's made in America. So even when technology ends up changing how things are made or produced, there's always going to be a market for people who want the different thing, the original, the other. And so that's why I say too, like even right now when people are worried about the AI stuff, it's like, what if somebody was a good writer, but they couldn't form a plot art in their head really well? So they use AI to help with their story. And again, now they get it to the artist. Or it's at least usable enough to give to an editor, because they don't want to pay an editor 15 times because they couldn't afford it, but they could pay him once if they have a starting point. It's like that. That's what I see it as, is like a little helper bot for things like that. That, what if you want a summary? What are you going to pay some dude to write a summary about your book because you can't find somebody to read it? Right? Like you're an AI, you're an indie comic creator. Like take your whole script, dump it into AI and be like, summarize this for me so I can pitch it to people. Now you're using it for business. You're not using it for the storytelling.
In Escape to Earth, I think it's number 2. And I think I might even reused it for number 3. Like, when you go to print, you have to print a certain amount of pages, like, for a front and a back or whatever. So I had some extra ones. And, I just generated this this reptilian looking guy and like put the store where people can buy the books. And then I was just like, come to the Reptilian Media store. And I didn't have to pay anyone to do that. It was just, and it was an easy prompt. Like I just picked the best one and threw it up there. I think in terms of like marketing, it's perfectly okay. And especially if you're someone who's trying to save money and has a very small budget, why not? And then also having like chatbots to run your social media, please. Like I hate social media. I mean, I don't hate it, but I hate doing it. It takes up so much time. I'd rather be writing,
Yeah, we Greg and I just got access to basically an equivalent to ManyChats, but a lifetime membership to this competitor. I basically attended a conference, super lucky, a friend invited me, and then they're like, hey, I'm one of those users that helps people get this account for free because they need a minimum number of users to keep their Facebook API access. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, can I get more than one? And they're like, yeah. So like I got one for me and my companies. And so, yeah, it's like that stuff's super helpful. Like if you don't utilize stuff like ManyChats, like to reply to people, and what if somebody messaged you and you're asleep because you're in New York and they're in LA, or vice versa, they're waking up while you're asleep because you're in LA and they're in New York. And it's like little simple stuff like automations and that type of stuff can help. And eventually you can get that to digest your stories, and it can respond like, hey, what type of comics do you like? And they start talking and they know all your comics, and they're like, you probably would like this one. It's like now it can make suggestions for you, and it's a salesperson. It's like there's some crazy stuff you can do with that has nothing to do with the creative process. And I think that that's the biggest missed opportunity for any indie creator of any type, music, film, comics, books, doesn't matter. Like use it for all the other stuff you don't know how to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty sad if you paint it all with like a broad brush, and you're just like, ugh, no AI for me, thank you. It's like that's like the person who said no to the horseless carriage when it came out. It's like, no, thank you. I'll be going on my horse and buggy from here on out.
Bah.
Meanwhile, everyone else is in their Model Ts and they're making out with their hot wives or something. I don't know.
No, but yeah, I do like that. It's the way I describe it. It's like, you're worried that it's going to take your job, but it's like you're at a gold mine using a shovel, and I got a tractor. It's like, I'm going to win. You could buy yourself a tractor too. They're pretty cheap right now, especially because they're testing them out. You know what I mean? Like, I found out. So I have like the paid ChatGPT. One of my clients has the $200 a month ChatGPT, and then he found out that they're going to be releasing like a $20,000, something crazy like that. But it's going to be like literally staff members. Like you could tell it, hey, you're a graphic designer. Create 30 pieces of content over the next month for this company. Here's a bunch of information about the company. Go. And then you go off doing other stuff while it's doing it in the background. And it's like, man, you better.
What?
And that's why it's like people have to understand, like, imagine you're a graphic designer now and you hear that. And it's like, okay, why not figure out how that works and see if maybe you can use it in your process to make it faster and better. For now, you can still create stuff. I still use Canva to make, graphic designs and stuff, but even Canva is a tool. At one point it was pencil and pen. Like like people got to realize, like,
people used to be against CGI. They used to be against Photoshop.
What is it? Procreate, that one on iPad where you draw a circle and it's almost a perfect circle and it fixes it for you. Mm-hmm. Like that is literally a machine learning program doing that. It's like, it's the next step is AI. It's like, we're only seconds from it. And it's like, and again, I still think that artists will have jobs for a very, very long time. I think people will always like that hand-drawn thing. There's always going to be something unique about a person. And again, even if a computer could perfectly copy it, eventually there's still going to be people who are like, oh man, this one was drawn by hand. Yeah, here's $50. Like, I want the hand-drawn one. It's like, it's going to happen.
Right. And I mean, if you have your own style and your own ideas, then, I mean, people they'll have no choice but to go to you. It won't be in the AI,
Yeah. That's true.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
That was an awesome turn of events. We went through like paneling at conventions, and we went through what's it called, like storytelling, and getting your comics out there and how to sell them, to AI and all that fun stuff. This is a good one.
So where can people find you?
Oh, I mean, at Reptilian Media, pretty much anywhere on YouTube, Instagram, X, and if you want to purchase copies of Escape to Earth, it's reptilianmedia.bigcartel.com, I think is what it is. And the audio drama that I did 4 years ago, Ray Can't Sleep, is on Spotify or anywhere you get podcasts, basically.
Sweet. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.